Hey everyone, what's going on? Hope you're having a great day. If you've been running dungeons in Fellowship and wondering what's about to change, let's talk through the major patch that's about to land, what time the servers go down in your region, and the practical effects you're going to feel the minute you log back in. Quick timing first, so nobody gets caught mid-run. Maintenance is slated for Thursday, November 6th at 7 a.m. CET, with the servers taken offline and the patch rolling out immediately after. If you're in India, that lines up to about 11:30 a.m. IST on November 6th. Some sites are calling it a November 7th update because of time zones and late coverage windows, but the official note says November 6th at 7 a.m. CET, and that's the plan the team is working from. Expect the patch to go live right after maintenance wraps. Now, what's actually changing? The big headline is stability and fairness. The devs have been hammering on a set of issues players kept tripping over during runs. One of the nastiest ones was that patrols could desync, which sometimes made enemies go functionally invisible until they blinked on top of you. That wasn't just annoying, it could end an otherwise clean push. This patch includes a fix that addresses those patrol path desyncs so enemies appear properly and you're not getting ambushed for no good reason. There's also a fix for targeted ground abilities, sometimes losing their aiming circle or snapping to your character if your cursor was pointing at a wall or steep slope. If you've ever tried to place a ground effect precisely in a tight corridor and watched your reticle do something weird, this is the fix you were hoping for. Matchmaking is also getting tuned in a way that matters a ton for your average pug run. The item level minimums for the 3 league tiers are going up. Adept's gate moves to 80 from 60, Champion rises to 130 from 120, and Paragon ticks up to 190 from 180. Why raise the floor? The devs said Adept especially was meant to be a real step up with extra enemy and boss mechanics, but in practice was punishing folks a bit harder than intended when a group's gear baseline was too low. By nudging those minimum from smoother difficulty, they're aiming for smoother difficulty ramp and better completion rates than random groups. If you're someone who likes to queue solo and meet new teammates, you should feel fewer runs falling apart just because 1 or 2 players were under the old threshold. There are also item and systems fixes sprinkled throughout. One example that jumped out at me from the notes was a correction to the Dark Prophecy set bonus, which was cheekily triggering off non-hero actions like emotes or interacting with campfires. You can imagine the weird edge cases that creates. That's being locked down, so it procs only off what it's actually supposed to, which should preserve the balance intent behind the set. There are other small but meaningful corrections to weapons and traits that tidy up edge case behavior and tooltips. It's the kind of cleanup that doesn't make flashy thumbnails, but these are the changes that keep runs predictable and builds honest. If you're coming back after a short break and you're thinking, wait, what about the UI stuff everyone was praising last week? Quick recap. The team previously pushed a first pass on better buff tracking, including an important hero buffs bar that can be moved and scaled separately. That was a direct response to the feedback that the default buff rows were too cluttered and not focused on the things you actually care about in combat. That earlier pass wasn't the end state. They've said more customization is in the works, but it already helps surface the most impactful hero buffs and reduces the noise. It's nice context because this new patch keeps the quality of life momentum going, while targeting stability, matchmaking, and some class balance nudges called out in the full notes and community chatter. Timing-wise, I know a bunch of you were planning sessions around the weekend, so let's make sure the schedule is crystal clear. Weekly maintenance happens at 7 a.m. CET on Thursdays. This patch is attached to that slot day, which is why you're seeing the November 6th listing, even if your local region flips the calendar differently as the news circulates. Once maintenance ends, the patch is live, so finish your runs before the top of the hour, log out cleanly, and plan to grab the client update the moment servers come back up. I'd also recommend double-checking your build tooltips after you patch, because small fixes can sometimes change how you value a trait or how you sequence abilities. Let's talk practical effects for different kinds of players. If you primarily run Adept with friends or via matchmaking, the higher minimum item level should filter some of the rougher experiences where mechanics overwhelm groups that aren't quite ready. It doesn't remove the need to learn boss patterns, you still need to respect those, but it narrows the variance so the average run feels more consistent. For Champion and Paragon, the changes are smaller but still meaningful, especially if you were queuing near the old minimums and feeling like one undertuned player could swing the outcome. With the floor raised a bit, your pugs should feel a touch sturdier. For class enjoyers who follow every tweak, the community threads are buzzing about some hero adjustments as part of the broader balance picture. In the feedback chatter leading up to this patch, people called out buffs landing on Sylvie and some healing cadence improvements, with references to life piddle charges and interactions with haste. That's not the only class touched, but it gives you a sense of the direction. reducing frustration points and enabling clearer gameplay loops so you can see your impact in a fight. Keep an eye on the official notes for the exact numbers your build cares about, but the theme is smoothing rough edges rather than flipping the meta upside down in one go. If you're an items and systems nerd, this is a great time to audit your loadouts. After the Dark Prophecy correction and similar fixes, review any set or trait that felt a little too cheeky in the previous patch. Sometimes a build that was accidentally benefiting from an unintended interaction still works, just with slightly different timing windows or a different gem priority. While you're at it, revisit your relic choices and verify descriptions, because tooltip cleanups and recent updates have made it easier to evaluate upgrades at a glance. And yes, please do a quick pass on your keybinds and UI scale. The more precise your targeting feels after the ground aiming fix, the more you'll want your interface to match your muscle memory. Another thing worth highlighting is how these changes fit into the broader cadence since early access launch. The studio has been shipping weekly maintenance windows, rapidly addressing the early server snags, and even found time to run a Halloween event with earnable cosmetics rather than selling them outright. That's a strong signal about priorities. Keep the game stable, respect players' time with clear fixes, and keep the vibe positive with seasonal fun. If you missed that event window, it ran through November 13th with a spooky stronghold makeover and themed skins you could earn by just playing your heroes. It's not directly part of this patch, but understanding the rhythm helps set expectations for how development is rolling forward. So how should you prep before the patch hits? First, finish any long runs you've queued up, at least a little before your local maintenance time, because the servers will drop for the update and nobody wants to lose a deep push to a maintenance screen. Second, clean up your stash and lock in your preferred builds so you can immediately test how the fixes feel without rummaging around. Third, jot down a couple of benchmarks you care about. Maybe it's a particular boss phase where targeting used to be flaky, or a hallway where patrols gave you trouble, and go check those right away post-patch. If they feel better, you'll know the changes landed for you. And if something still feels off, you can give clear feedback with examples, which is the kind of thing the devs have been reacting to too quickly. What about creators and group leaders? If you manage a guild or a Discord, this is a good patch to spin up a teaching night. The raised item level floors will mean new players may need a hand bridging the gap to the next league. Set up some crafted gear hand-me-downs, plan a route to farm the right stats efficiently, and encourage folks to practice mechanics in Adept until they're comfortable, then step back into Champion. With fewer out-of-whack enemy invisibility moments and steadier ground targeting, teaching clean footwork and ability timing should be simpler. You can even record a before and after clip on some boss arenas to illustrate how ability circles behave more consistently when you're aiming near walls or ramps. A quick note for those who love numbers. When minimums nudge up, there's always a small economy ripple. Expect a brief bump in demand for transitional gear that gets people over the new thresholds, especially around common breakpoints like 80, 130, and 190. If you craft or trade, keep an eye on items that shore up weak secondary stats without gutting survivability.